This is a Faith Defender's audio presentation with author, lecturer, and Christian apologist, Dr. Bob Morey.
We're going to have a brief question and answer period. You may not preach here. I don't go to preach in a mosque. If you have a question, not preaching, not a confession, because in a mosque, I'm not even allowed to question. I would not go preach in a mosque. So if you have a question based upon the lecture, I'm more than willing, one question per person. You give your question, then you go sit down. The pastor has said no debating, and I am in his facility. So once you give your question, sit down, get your answer, and there will be no dialoguing. So then they have to get the microphone, who has the microphone, and make your way over there, and it's one question per person, and then sit down. Who will be first with the question tonight? All right, give your first name, please, not the last name. And then
you have to hold it.
He has to hold it because you're only asking a question, then sitting down.
Dr. Morey, I am Dr. Saeed.
Oh, glad to meet you.
A physician in Ifreta, and I have a Ph.D. I was supposed to be in this program. They called me, they sent me papers to be in this program when we talked about
Yes, I looked forward to it ever so much.
Unfortunately, for some reason, they prevented me from presenting.
They prevented me
side.
too,
yes. Anyway, if you would like, I say this in front of everybody. Tomorrow there is a program at 9:45 a.m. about something about Islam. I would like you to allow me to stay tomorrow and challenge all what you have said here. Lots of them are fabrication, lots of them are lies, lots of them are misquoting. I would like, this is a country of freedom.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has to express,
Well,
and
no.
Allow me tomorrow to do this, because all what you are talking here is unbelievable. As a Muslim, this is the first time ever
Well, you see,
I heard about it.
Now, by this emotional outburst, you had a chance to ask a question. This church has its own services. I assure you the pastor is not going to give over a church service for the preaching of the false religion of Islam. Is the pastor here? Did I cancel the debate? Would you settle this? He's claiming that I canceled the debate.
Dr. Saeed, I'm the one who called you. I canceled the debate.
Did I put you up to it?
Okay, tomorrow can I?
No, you can ask the question,
Okay.
Dr. Saeed.
Sir, I have a
Dr.
flight
Saeed,
outside.
listen to me.
Yeah.
You can ask a question.
Sir,
One question.
one question I would like to know, if you allow me tomorrow, if you are so confident about what you are saying, to challenge you tomorrow. Will you?
Dr. Saeed, hello.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
He is the pastor. I do not have this church.
This is what brings us into lots of trouble in the United States.
Now, you have to be careful. You're beginning to sound like a terrorist, and we cannot have this terrorism. Be very careful. The FBI is watching. The FBI is watching. We're not handing out papers. Not outside in the parking lot. We would not do that at a mosque. Now, I want to encourage you to see the difference. I have the debates with Manzur Alam, my debate with Dr. Gamil Badawi, my debate with Shabir Ali. You will find polite, gentleman debates dealing with issue. Does the hadith record that Muhammad said to kill all dogs and cats? That is a question of fact. Either he did or he didn't. For this lady, worked for the Saudis for 15 years. Did the Saudis have dogs? No dogs. One question. Who would like to ask a question? Calm. You have to get your way over to the, yeah, there you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would like to know how you think your insults, disdain, and mockery help God in any way, shape, or form.
Because, well, very simple, very simple. I turn to the example of the prophet Elijah when he had to deal with the false prophets of Baal in 1 Kings 18. He says, maybe your God is in the bathroom. Shout a little louder. Maybe if you cut yourself. Jesus mocked. I have a CD where he mocked the false prophets. In other words, if someone claims to be a prophet of God because he has a big black hairy mole on his shoulder, he deserves to be pointed out. This is not proof of prophethood. Amen. Now look at the difference. I may make humorous what I consider to be ridiculous teaching, Jews become monkeys, which is very insulting to Jewish people. So that I follow the example of the prophets and of Jesus and the apostles, yes, I do so without shame, and I am being biblical. I'm sorry you're a Muslim sympathizer. She leaves in shame. The poor thing, she's probably in love with the Muslim, and that's generally how the white women get involved. Another question. Way back. No, right up here, the lady here.
It is my understanding that the 360 gods who were once represented in the Kaaba
Yes.
by idols.
Yes, they were.
And that Muhammad, and included in these 360 were the three daughters
Of Allah.
of
Yes.
Allah.
Yes.
And that Muhammad destroyed all of the idols except one, and that was the one that represents Allah.
The black stone,
black stone
which he
is-
worshipped, kissed, and caressed.
So they kept that one.
That
And
is
that's
still one idol
there.
left. Yes.
And it's still there, and they still kiss it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is true. That's one of the great embarrassments, is the worship of the stone. Over here, Marshall, way over here, the lady over here. Wait till they get the microphone. By the way, everything that I told you can be found in encyclopedias, dictionaries. I'm just reporting to you what scholars from Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford document, and that's what I do, and that's what even Yusuf Ali does, but that's what I do in my books, is I give you the documentation. You may go to the source material, you may look, and you will find, like the Encyclopedia of Mythology, classical myth, under Allah, originally the moon god. I didn't write that encyclopedia. It's there. So one Muslim said, how come you invented this idea? I said, well, thank you for the compliment, as if I could be so powerful as to do that. But before I was even born, Islamic scholars have been writing about the connection between the crescent moon and Islam. So don't think that I created this. I didn't. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that when you live among or associate with Muslims, they're very, very peaceful people. But I also noticed that when they increase in numbers, like in Kosovo or wherever this was, like where they had that big war,
yes,
when Clinton was president, and wherever they increase in numbers, there comes all this war and strife and killing people. Why is that?
Well, there are two faces to Islam. On the DVD out there, Jihad According to the Quran and the Hadith, and it's out now, so anyone wants to get the DVD. The Quran is divided into two phases. You have the Meccan surahs, when Muhammad was weak and only had small followers, and that's when he said there's no compulsion in religion, let's get along, we're all friends. He was like singing the Coke message. and it was very peaceful. But when he took the flight to Medina and ended up there, a king and a warrior at the head of an army, then came all these statements. So the strategy is this. When Muslims are in the land of Islam, then they took full power. When they are in the land of war, they are to be peaceful until, as such time, they can seize authority and then take over. So in order to prove that Islam is a peaceful religion, they will quote from the Meccan surahs and not tell Western people that those had been abrogated by the Medinan surahs, which says to fight or to kill. So it is a process, as you said, when they are in control, it's a horse of a different color, right behind him.
You gave as a principle the idea of always taking the best of a religion when you go to evaluate it.
Yes.
And in all honesty, it almost seems to me that in going to Muhammad, you're taking the worst.
Well, he's the founder.
Yeah, but the other principle you also mentioned that you were talking about what is religion today. Could you give us an insight as to whether or not we might legitimately regard Islam today as truly different, having made any change? Is there any difference between classical Islam, which we might consider as represented by Muhammad, and Islam today? Has it got a different?
Well, most Islamic scholars say today that Muslims around the world, 1.4 billion, fall into four groups. You have, first of all, the fundamentalists, and they are divided into two groups. The radicals like bin Laden and others who say we must seize power by all means necessary. They will sell drugs, diamonds, they will murder, assassinate, rape, prostitution, by all means necessary, seize power. Then you've got the scripturalists, such as the House of Saudis, who don't want to use that kind of violence, but they can buy influence. They can print literature and spread Wahhabism around the world by building mosques. Then beside the fundamentalists, then you have the traditionalists, and there are two kinds of traditionalists. There are those who want to retain 7th century culture, and that would be the Ayatollahs in Iran. They really want to take Iran back to the 7th century, so there's a hostility to modern medicine. Women have to go back to the veil. They cannot be out of the house but a note from their husband. If you watch the movie Not Without My Daughter by Betty Mahmoudi, we did a show together in television, you will see the intent is to retain the culture. The other kind of traditionalist wants to retain the values, but not the culture. They see the culture as something that can be left behind. And we can keep the values, but become modern. Then thirdly, you have what are called the modernists. The modernists, let's say like Gaddafi, the Gulf states, they want to see Muslims move out of the 7th century culture, away from what they thought are values that are no longer in line with the modern world. So they go gamble, they go to the beach and swim, they build restaurants. I have a friend who just came back from one of the Gulf states at a huge shopping mall. The women are not wearing veils. He said, you would think you were in Southern California. Same shops. They're modernists. They still want to be Muslim, but they want to go to Paris, shop the best shops, wear the highest fashions. One can think of the wife of Sadat and the wife of the king of Jordan. You can think of these beautiful women who wear the best of fashions, and they're not going back to a 10 over their head. They're modernists. Then finally, there are the secularists. Two kinds of secularists. You have the Turkish model, which believe that it's okay to be a Muslim as long as it is quarantined from controlling the government. So the secular government of Turkey does not want the religion of Islam to dictate what it does. That's why the military's in charge. They suppress fundamentalism. By the way, the traditionalists and the modernists and the secularists all view the fundamentalist radical as their enemy, because the fundamentalist radical will kill all of those other Muslims. And lastly, there are the Marxists, secularists, in the Islamic world who are actually communists, who believe that Islam, as all religions, should be destroyed. And they are seeking power that in the end they can destroy it. One can think of the Muslims who in Albania destroyed all of the mosques, stuffed Muslims into barrels and rolled them into the sea. So that kind of suppression of religion has been experienced in the Islamic world. So you have a basic division between the fundamentalists, the traditionists, the modernists, and the secularists. Now, what percentage of all the billion people are radical fundamentalists? The lowest amount is 1%, the highest is 10%. If it's 10% of 1.4 billion, we got 140 million people ready to kill people. That would be awful. The majority of Muslims I meet in the United States have come here for a better life. They're not interested in burning a local church. They don't even attend mosque. They don't even go to Ramadan. Their Islam is a culture that is reduced to festivals, food, a few things, but they are not radical in terms of religion, because you look at the men and they wear normal clothing, and you look at their wives and they wear normal clothing. So when you see the hat, the robe, the little pointed shoes, and the woman with the sheet over her head, you are moving in the direction of fundamentalism. Whether it is a benign scripturalist, where the Quran says it, that settles it, or the radical, that would have to be decided case by case. But the majority of Muslims around the world, and the majority are not Arabs, like Indonesia is the largest Muslim country, are peaceful people who are Muslim by accident of birth and of culture, and they are not violent or dangerous people. And I do appreciate the questions. Have they not been helpful? Yes. Way in the back, there's a gentleman there. And give us your name.
Yes, I wanted to thank you very much for having this ex-con. It's great to get together and be able to listen to different points of view. But a couple of mentions, I thought it was interesting in the beginning. We made it a point of saying, you don't look for the worst.
You look for the best, the best scholars they have, yes.
Right, so then I listened to about a half hour's worth, apparently of the best of the Catholics that you were able to find.
Yeah, Catechism of the Catholic
drunks
Church.
And not feminazis and so on and so on. And
yeah.
With 1 billion Catholics in the world, you're absolutely right. If you want to look for sinners, look in the Catholic Church, you'll find them.
Or the Protestant Church, yes.
But those are not representative of the Catholic Church.
Amen, that's what I said.
So, yes, it's somewhat.
We agree together.
Over here, in the Catholic, you mentioned the 846 paragraph in the Catechism.
Yes.
But you forgot to mention the heading right above that, where it says, quote, outside the church there is no salvation.
Yes.
You said that we no longer believe any of that.
No, the interpretation.
Again, one of the difficulties.
Wait. You've asked me a question.
Okay.
All right. In the pre-Vatican II, during the Reformation period, that slogan, outside of the church there is no salvation, was restricted to the body of the Roman Catholic Church. In Vatican II, the body of Christ was rendered larger than the Roman Catholic Church, so that Protestant and others can be part of the true Church of Christ, which is greater than the Roman communion. So thus, while the phrase remains, it has now undergone a reinterpretation, And you can find this in any of the commentaries dealing with Vatican II.
Well, and I appreciate that.
And is that
comment.
not the case?
Well, what I would say is...
Is that not the case?
No, I don't believe that's accurate.
You don't believe that at one time...
What I would say, if you would...
Well, wait a second. Let me finish. I was asking the question. You're going to tell this audience the Roman Catholic Church never, Middle Ages, in the past, taught that its communion, there was no salvation outside of its organization.
Again,
it never taught that.
Okay.
Yes or no?
I'll tell you right now, I am not working my third doctorate in theological studies as yourself.
Sure.
So if you're going to ask me what chapter and verse of an ecumenical council from 500 years ago, you know what? You did stump me there. But let me say something.
Okay, in other words, you don't know, but go ahead.
Please let me finish here.
Sure.
What I would just simply say is when you're going to do, and that's a great advice, get the catechism, but read it and don't take it out of context.
Sure.
Read the entire context of it.
Yeah, there are whole commentaries written on this.
Exactly.
Sure.
And also, when some of the statements that are made, again, it's really difficult in a situation to be able to be in a situation to accept words that are not true teaching of the Catholic Church. We do not believe that we've thrown out the Council of Trent, as you had said, in Vatican II. So we don't believe that
Who is the we?
Type of things.
Are you a priest?
Officially in the Catholic Church, and I challenge you to show me in the Catechism or anything else you're showing. We're saying we've done away with the Council of Trent.
No. Who is the we? Are you a priest?
No, I'm not.
Are you part of the magisterium?
Sinner in the Catholic Church. What I'm saying, my question to you on your third doctorate, you've studied this so well. If you can show me where we have said that we're in Vatican II throwing out Council of Trent, as you had stated.
No, where I can show you
from
in the preamble to Vatican II, each successive, like Vatican I, then Vatican II, each successive council, and as more documents come out, they supersede what went before. For example, I'll give you a good example. In the old Catholic Encyclopedia, under the term debate, it says no lay Catholic can engage in a public debate with a Protestant. Now, in the New Catholic Encyclopedia, that has been removed. In other words, Catholic scholars will tell you that Catholicism is a living organism, not a rock. It changes, it adapts, and Vatican II goes beyond Vatican I, and the ecumenical drive is now to accept Protestants as separated brethren with whom the Pope can pray, whereas during the Reformation and the 30 Days War, they were heretics to be exterminated. So I think you've had a good shot, but you are a lay person.
Yes,
I think it's very easy to see that you may be out of step with the teaching of the monsignors, the bishops, the professors of biblical theology at Notre Dame.
And again,
if I have to, what is your job, by the way? What is your job?
Well, if you will permit,
what's your job?
I'm a chiropractor, doctor of
Okay,
chiropractor.
you're a chiropractor.
Yes, sir.
If I will take this young lady here, if you have to choose between what a chiropractor says is what Catholicism teaches, and a Monsignor in the Catholic Church sitting at St. Patty's,
I would look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
One,
look at people that are not following the Catholic Church.
Which one? I'm asking her. Which one has more credence?
Read the Catechism.
The Monsignor would have more credence. Let's go ahead and one question per customer, and I think that's only fair. Let's go for the next person who raise your hand. Okay, we just do the lady there. Let's get someone else first. Yes.
You were talking about evolution.
Yes.
And what Catholicism believes on evolution.
Yes.
In the Yearbook of Science, I can't remember the name, there was an article on what the Pope had to say about evolution.
He believes in it.
He believes in it.
Yes.
Right.
Well, let me ask this question. Did anyone here go through Catholic school in any stage of their education? Raise your hand. Were you taught evolution in the Catholic school? What were you? You were taught evolution. Any of you others were taught evolution, evolution? In other words, yes, that's part and parcel. So I've asked modern Roman Catholic scholars to debate creationism versus evolution, and also to debate whether or not the fall of man, Adam and Eve, was a literal historical event. And I don't get any nibbles. By the way, when you're debating, have you found any official Roman Catholic officials, Notre Dame, who were behind you in terms of defending creationism as opposed to some form of evolution? Have you ever found such a creature? Never. I think it's an oxymoron to have a Roman Catholic creationist. I've never met one.
Okay, that was my
That'll
question.
help.
Does the normal Catholic layman, according to...
Well, ask these guys. Which of you guys
evolution,
that are Catholic apologists, which of you, yes or no, believe in evolution or a literal
I will
six-day
bring you the
creation?
article.
I'll show you an encyclical document where the Pope says man did not come from monkeys. Okay, this is our Pope who says this.
Okay,
Well, you have
in
to
the
read
yearbook
Theology
of Science,
Chardon.
1991, I
But
do
the
have
question is
article.
this: do you guys, the chiropractor, do you believe that Genesis is speaking of a literal 7-day creation and that man was created out of the dust and Eve was created out of his rib? The chiropractor. Are you all chiropractors?
No.
Just yes or no?
Sir,
Wait a second. No, not until he answers the chiropractor. Do you believe in literal creation?
Can you say that again, please?
Do you believe when you read Genesis 1, those are literal days of creation, 24-hour days, and that the universe was created in 6 days, and evolution is a false theory?
To me, I believe in whatever the Bible and God tells me, but I do not limit God to my finite mind or my solar hours or whatever. You know, I believe in God. God did not give it out as a handbook. Look, this is a how-to book, how we created your house. And this is a plan. I don't think that was the focus of him, to be able to go through all the information of that. God says, and I believe exactly as it was said in the Bible, but I believe that it leaves open for a lot of God's ability to be able to do that in any way he wanted. I don't believe God is restricted by time. I don't believe God is restricted by anything. I don't think that I have to sacrifice science with faith. I believe that science can never contradict faith, because if science is true science, it's reproducible and is truth. Jesus said he is the way, the truth, and the life.
And now the long and short, you don't believe in literal young earth
I believe
creationism.
exactly what the Bible said, and I believe...
Well, that's literal 6 days,
right.
which you don't.
Now,
This gentleman wanted to say whether or not he believed in creationism.
What I believe is there has not been a direct statement saying exactly, was this solar days, what was the promises,
Yes.
how much...
When yom is preceded by a numeral, it means a literal 24-hour day. That's a matter of Hebrew
and
grammar.
You also believe, then you know very well that, for example, 1,000 years is used as meaning what? Exactly 1,000 years throughout the Bible? Does 1,000...
No, it's not used as a symbol for a day.
In that sense?
No, never.
Okay, so
There's no numerology in the Bible.
Okay, so now you're saying sometimes it is literal and sometimes it isn't.
No, you don't know what you're
When
talking
you read 1,000
about.
years of the Bible, you're saying you don't really believe it.
Well, I asked a simple question, and the answer is he doesn't believe. I'll ask to pass the baton. You had your chance, you blew it. Give it over to the other young man who's been having his hand up. To this young man first, because he was so excited. Do you believe in literal creation, a literal Adam and Eve, as a historical fall of man into sin? Do you believe the fall of Adam and Eve actually took place as described by Scripture? Glasses, notebook, and pencil. Yes, you've got all three. Yes or no?
The two are not exclusive to each other. And sir, may I say something?
Well, if you answer my question first.
No, the two are not exclusive to each other. God can work in evolution. Somehow in evolution,
Oh, well, that
God
answers
gave
our
man a
question.
spirit.
Yeah, okay, all right, you've answered it. This proves my point 100%. This, guys, I want to thank you. You're illustrating everything.
Can I say something?
Okay, yes.
I have no problem with the 24-hour day, 7 days, creation, okay?
You see, having no problem and believing it are two different
Now,
things.
Can I do one thing?
Yeah, as long as you say you believe in it.
Okay, I believe in it. I believe in the 24-hour day, 7-day week. Okay, now, my point is I thought we were going to be able to get up and ask our question. You're kind of railroading us into this creation thing. I thought we were going to do Roman Catholicism. Can I ask a question about that?
You may ask a question, of course.
Okay, yeah.
The others may go ahead and sit down. What's your one question?
Okay. And just as everybody else has wanted to do, I mean, I kind of want to make a statement and then put a question to it.
Well, I don't allow, when I have an open meeting with Muslims, cultists, or whatever,
Okay.
I am not allowed to preach in their churches, mosques, and temple. You may not give your testimony. You may not preach or make statements. You may ask a question.
It has to do with your
You
talk.
may answer a question, but you may not preach.
No.
This is a gospel church, and we don't allow false preaching.
Amen.
So you go ahead and give your question.
Okay, I'm not going to preach. It just has to do with your talk.
No, you have to give a question.
Okay. All right. Let's do a question. It has to do with Catholicism, what we believe.
Of my lecture, not what you believe. You have a question concerning what I taught in this lecture.
Okay, well, my question is, I can make a statement on what you taught, okay?
No, you have to have a question. Does anyone have a problem?
The guy's railroading me.
This isn't the Jerry Springer
Okay,
show.
Okay, all right.
When I say
You're the one
I
that's
would not be allowed to come to your Catholic church and even question your priest. They wouldn't even let me do that. I'm allowing
I
you
got a question for
to
you.
ask a question, but I don't want statements and preachings and ad hominems. What is your question?
I'll compartmentalize my question to the way you like it, okay?
Sure.
When you had made the statement of Notre Dame and all these different,
Sure.
stamp places, very, that was good. I don't have the pulp of it. My question is how come they were all used with American Catholic churches, which we know is like the most liberal? You went to New York, it's like the most liberal place on the planet. I mean,
St. Patty's?
Yeah, New York. Exactly.
New York?
Yes.
I love New York.
Look at the center. Look at the Catholic.
What about Notre Dame?
Very liberal.
LaSalle, Marymount,
Liberal, all liberal.
Boston.
Yes, if you look at the communications between Rome and the Catholic Church in America today, it's pretty bad. He's saying, look, Christ is about ready to pull the mantle from Catholic Church in America because of the dissidence and the way we are turning away, and everything you stated is not in line with the Catholic Church. The Latin Mass is the Mass, the language is the Mass, the official language of the Church, unlike what you said. These people are making statements to you.
I was
that are
like,
not in line
you're
with the
preaching
Catholic
now.
Church.
Now you're telling us
I'm asking why you use
that the
liberal,
only
liberal,
language in
I'm
which
asking
the
why-
Mass can be
I'm
said
asking why
is
you use
Latin.
liberal examples of very liberal Catholics to make a point of, to make your point when you say you should use the best, you're using all these liberal people. I just don't understand that. That's my question.
Okay, all right, good. No, you already had your statement. Very, very simple. I think Monsignor Duffy, I think the professors at Notre Dame would be very surprised to learn that even though they are officially the magisterium, they are the ones who are involved in writing the Catechism of the Catholic Church, part of the defense of the faith, that they don't know what they're talking about. It's like a Muslim telling me, I know what Islam teaches, never mind what the Quran, the Hadiths, the mullahs, and the imams. We're not going to do that. Now, this is a good example of an emotional outbreak of a distraught individual. I do not go to Catholic churches, start shouting and carrying on. You are an embarrassment to your own Catholicism. Let's go over to this side. Any sane questions? Yes, over there, right behind you.
Are you familiar with the Catholic scholar Raymond Brown?
Of course.
Okay. I have an acquaintance who told me that he had been a friend of Raymond Brown's until he died a few years ago.
I was just going to say he's gone.
Yeah, I know. And,
Yeah.
But he told me that Brown had informed him that the Catholic Church was in the process of reforming its doctrines on the Trinity. And if I recall right, he had said something along the lines that within 30 to 50 years, these new teachings would trickle down into the lay Catholic consciousness. And the impression that I had was that they were basically abandoning the Trinity teachings. Do you have any comment on that? Was I informed right or wrong?
Yeah, right. No, yeah, well, I don't know. Hopefully it's not going to work. What you're dealing with is the inroads of process philosophy established by Alfred North Whitehead, who taught at Oxford, then at Harvard, where he went during World War II. Whitehead believed that we needed to move away from Plato to Aristotle, from ontology to existential process. Now, what he taught was this: no one can talk about God in terms of his being or ontology. All we have after Hegel is becoming or process. So to say God is three persons would be to throw God in concrete and let it set. Instead, God is in the process of becoming what we do not know. And Whitehead then applied this theory of progressive evolution to God, to man, so that what God will be, nobody knows. He was famous for saying, the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but I say, in the end, the heavens and the earth shall create God. Process philosophy is dominant in your liberal Protestant circles and has now taken over in Europe, and many of the liberal Roman Catholic theologians who are in the process of getting rid of ontology, any discussion of being, and moving it over to function. So they would be willing to say God functions as three persons. Christ functions as God. But they don't want to talk about is God. And it has to do with process versus being. And I discuss that in my book, The Battle of the Gods, about 300 pages, which is a documentation on Whitehead and how his views have infiltrated religious circles. Back there, he's back there already, Dr. Kenna. Maybe you'd give us a wise comment.
Yes, Dr. Morey, this is a story I'd heard, and I just wondered if you could verify it. I had heard that in the Quran or somewhere that there's a passage that teaches that Allah is so capricious that on the final judgment day, even if you did everything you were supposed to do as a Muslim and were perfect in obeying all the laws and the works and everything, as you walked over this line of judgment and the scale of balances was tipping left or right based on how much good works or bad works you had, Allah could decide, even if you did everything perfectly, I've had a bad day, and I'm going to press my finger on the other side of the scale, and you'll fall off into hell, even though you've done everything.
Muhammad said, I do not know what Allah will do with me on the day of judgment. The only assurance of paradise is that you died during jihad. So the young men who strap bombs are promised, if you want to guarantee Booty Town up there in paradise, then strap these bombs on and blow yourself up in a grocery store with the little old Jewish grandmothers and kill as many Jews as you can, because they're only the descendants of rats, pigs, and monkeys. So jihad is called the sixth pillar. Beyond dying during jihad, there is no assurance of salvation. But thank God, most Muslims have enough common sense to know blowing yourself up and killing innocent people is not the way of peace. So the majority of Muslims are not interested in sending their children. They're not interested in killing people. If all billion Muslims in the world were to start being suicide bombers, the world would cease to exist as we know it. And we just have to continue to pray that the fundamentalist radicals, who are in the minority, will be arrested by the traditionalists and the moderates, and now even the Saudis are having to arrest these radicals for blowing up buildings and buses in their country. That the Muslim world will crush these radicals before these radicals crush the Islamic world. Thank you very much, and keep in prayer the Muslims who came, who were so upset. Truth hurts. Let me encourage you to get the material, and you will see the documentation. All I ask is this: look up the references, and you will see that they are what I say they are. Thank you very much.
This has been a Faith Defenders audio presentation with author, lecturer, and Christian apologist, Dr. Bob Morey. For more of Dr. Morey's audio presentations, videos, books, tracts, and more, call 1-800-41-TRUTH. That's 1-800-41 and the word truth. Or visit faithdefenders.com.